Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and fight fans around the world. It's your boy P. Welsh here with another UFC Fight Night previews, predictions, and picks. This time it's Nicolau versus Perez. Quick, we're gonna get off to a little recap of UFC 300 absolute banger card, 10-3 week. We had Figueiredo, lost Jimmy Miller, won Andrade, lost Turner, one Lopes, one Harrison, one Sterling, one Prohaska, one Nickel, one Sarukian, lost Gaethje, one Zhang, one Pereira. So pretty fire week picking them. Keeping up the hot streak there. Very excited. UFC 300, great card. But we're back onto the UFC fight nights, and we're getting us started here with Gabriel Benitez versus Mahashete. We in the lightweight division, we got Benitez at 23-12 versus Mahashete 9-3, both coming off a loss. Mahashete a big height advantage, and that's where I think we're gonna see the big X factor in the fight come in here. Benitez fought somebody else on the card that's fighting later. I think he took a loss there as well. I think I'm just a big fan of Mahashete. I remember watching his last fight. I think he's got a lot of talent. I think he'll come in explosive, looking for a finish. Usually sometimes I don't mind the old guards that have a lot of fight experience, holding their own, and I think they will. But I think in the smaller octagon, in the course of a 3-round fight, I think he's going to be able to do the damage to negate Benitez's offense and his grappling game, whatever he might be able to throw at him. I think we're going to see very clean technique, and we're going to see a world-class striking in the lightweight division, and kind of show him why he's one of those prospects that is favored pretty highly to start the card. I think we're going to see a finish, and we're going to be moving on quite quickly into the early part of the night. I tell you what, they know how to throw him on there early. All right, bang. After Mahashete, we're going to have Petrovic versus Na Lang, 6-1 versus 17-7 in the women's flyweight division. Both ladies coming off a loss. Petrovic a 3-inch reach advantage and height advantage. Na has a lot of opportunity to fight a really clean fight. I only worry if she's ineffective because of her size, if she's unable to get the leverage on Petrovic to work some of the submissions, not able to get in there, do the damage without taking too much damage. If Petrovic can piece her up from the outside as she's trying to approach, use a combination of strikes plus some defense, I think she'll be in a really good place to get the win. I think Lang is actually a live dog here with the chance to do the damage, to create the power, to get into the positions to capitalize in the octagon. When the cage closes, anything can happen. And I think that can definitely be a possibility, but I can also see her taking a lot of damage coming in and not being able to generate the intensity and the takedowns and the cleanliness to keep them there, especially if they start getting sweaty, a little bit of bloody here and there. I'm taking Petrovic. He's a huge betting favorite. If Na comes in there and pulls an upset, I won't be too shocked. There has been quite a large amount of lady upsets in the last few weeks on the early cards, so keep that in mind. Other than that, we're going to be moving on to this lightweight battle, which we don't have the odds on. I think this is a late scheduling. James Lanatop versus Chris Paldea. All I got to say is when I was looking up this one, I'm going to lean Lanatop. He's got a little bit of a height advantage. He's probably got a little bit more fight of experience as well. Paldea can definitely catch him in the early rounds, knock him out early. That's kind of his win condition. But I think these guys tend to scrap it out a little bit longer in the fight. The lightweight, I think we're going to see them want to stand and throw hands and try and impress with a knockout. And I think we're going to see a slugfest here. I'm expecting James to come out on top. And I don't have the odds on it, but we're going to move on to the women's strawweight. Manrick Mann versus Kathleen Souza, 6-2 versus 13-4, 3-inch height advantage and reach advantage for Souza. And Manrick Mann, I'm gonna say, I think she is gonna take another L here. I'm on the Souza train. I think she's just gonna be a more physical fighter, a more polished, a more technical fighter. I think Mann has the capabilities to compete, but not against the higher end competitions. The women's division is pretty cutthroat. You either have it or you don't, and the matchups really tend to feature that, where the really balanced matchups tend to happen towards the upper end, if they do happen. Sometimes even the higher end of the women's division is just outclassing the rest of it. And I think this is why Mann has a lot of potential, but I just don't think her fights inside the octagon have impressed. Well, I think Souza has had more recognizable opponents, even in defeat. think has had better performances, and I think she's going to show it probably in class and power is what's going to take. I think she'll be able to land the significant strikes, the dirty boxing, the elbows, the in close against the cage against Manrick Mann, who just hasn't dominated in those areas to make her think she can adjust and counter Sousa. So I got Sousa here. Big betting favorite as well. Not going out on much of a limb there, but that's where we're taking. On to the heavyweight bout. Dontrell Mays versus Caio Machado. 10-6 versus 8-2-1. Both coming off a loss. Both in the heavyweight division. And this one, I'm picking Machado all day. I'm leaning Machado. I'm thinking he's got might not have the edge in significant strikes and the power that Mays may have, but he might have the speed, cardio, and the changes to really be able to give my man some trouble. I think Mays is really looking for that one-hit KO if he can't get it. Machado is going to eat a lot of punches. He gets in a very bad position, but, he's going to either take significant damage to get there, or he's going to just be exhausted, tired from taking too much damage. And I think he's actually, if he can just change enough on the striking, control the octagon position, I do think he gets a decision victory. We need Mays to knock him out, and I just don't think that's happening. Something with the heavyweight trans is they've tended to been fighting a little bit longer, and I think this is going to be another one of the situations. I think Machado is going to try and dominate him, striking, get the grappling down, win the scorecard, and I think we're going to see a little bit longer. Leading Machado here. I mean, it's a pretty much of a pick 'em on the betting spreadsheet, so if you think Mays can produce that power, Machado doesn't have much to offer, then, it could be very 50-50. But I think it being 50-50 says it's way more Machado, because I think Mays is way more of an underdog in a puncher's challenge knockout. But, I could be wrong. Next, we're going to move into the lightweight bout. Austin Hubbard versus Michael Figlak, 16-6 versus 8-1. Very similar on the metrics there, both coming off a loss. And what I will say there in the lead up to this fight is Hubbard's opponents and his losses are not very impressive. Where Figlak, he has had a couple okay wins, more substantial finishes and not always going to the card and or losing by finish, which has been Hubbard's MO. His losses tend to be by decision, or his wins tend to be by decision, and his losses tend to be by finishes. Could see something like that again. I think Figlak is primed for a nice knockout victory. For guys that aren't super active to step into the Apex octagon with not a lot, of juice pushing you, I think we're going to see a lot of the true cage fighters separate themselves from just the average guys on contracts, because the guys that want to put on the show and perform, maybe somebody like Hubbard is looking for a bigger stage, is going to find it maybe tougher to walk into the Apex, fight somebody that is literally just training to be a killer, training to train and knock people out, which I think I'm picking Figlak here. I think it's another solid favorite on the betting card, but I think for good reason, good prospect, and getting a good little value. I think he's at 166. He maybe push up to 170. The odds the day before. The last bout of the featured preliminary, Ronnie Yaya versus Victor Henry in the bantamweight division, 28-11-1 no contest versus 23-6 coming off a no contest for Henry, which was against Basharat, who did take a loss in his last fight as a high-level prospect, wasn't looking as good as you would expect, and maybe that even makes Henry's performance look that much even better. I know it was an early stoppage, but he wasn't looking terrible in that fight. And I think we're going to see the bantamweight division is filled with a bunch of killers up and down, and Henry's a massive favorite in the minus 400 to 500 range. I think with somebody like Yaya, and all of his experience in the octagon. Again, this is one of those people that I think is one of those trained cage fighters, but I also think Henry is one of those with talent and determination. And I think that's one of those situations where we're going to see maybe not even a highlight finish, but just a very class performance by somebody who's going to be like, wow, they're going to be like, look at the kicks, look at the punches. And unfortunately, I don't think it's as balanced as a contest as we want to see, but we want to see the performance of somebody able to put together and continue to build on their fight game in the bantamweight, will show and perform in class and probably take home a unanimous decision. That's what I'm picking here. I think Henry, big favorite cards, and keeping it simple here. And then that's going to bring us into the main card on UFC Fight Nights from the Apex. Nicolau versus Perez. Leading off with Uros Medic versus Tim Means, 33-15-1 versus 9-2. Means coming off a win. Medic coming off a loss. And Man, as I've kind of talked a couple times on this card with guys with great experience, this is where this time I think I'm going to pick the guy with great experience. Going Tim Means. I think he has the ability to finish Urich. Feel like he has the ability to put together a game plan that'll be very difficult for Medic to overcome. Not saying he can't overwhelm him with power, speed, and ferocity, but he's not. But Means is going to be one of the first guys that actually loves doing it as well. And I picked Medic when I initially made my picks, but I'm gonna do the double back reverse. I'm picking Tim Means here. He's giving me the Bill Aguilo, Gerald Meashart vibes, where like these guys that are just trained fighters, they're gonna come in there, they win against the guys that are really tough competition, these prospects versus contenders, and I don't think Medic is that big of a contender. He may become that big of a contender with a highlight win over Means, but it could be also I'm seeing big favorite. I see big dogs win a lot of times on the cards, and this is where I'm actually going to take my official pick to the underdog side. I'm taking Tim Means, certified cage fighting veteran, plus 250. I think Medic can get the job done. I wouldn't expect if this one falls flat on his on his face and takes an L, but this is one that I'm just feeling as we're gonna look back and be like, man, we didn't respect Means at all for being, plus 235. Look at his resume. Look at his variety of wins. His time in the octagon cannot be understated. The time in the octagon cannot be understated. And I think Medic can put up a hell of a fight, and I think it's going to be a great scrap, maybe one of the best of the night. But I'm just going to pick Tim Means here, and we're going to go on to this one. Another really great fight on the main card. We got Jonathan Pierce versus David Onama, 14-5 versus 11-2. John coming off a loss. We got David coming off a win. In featherweight division, two very lengthy featherweights at 145, 6 foot versus 5'11. And man, this one is another one that's really tough for me to. I keep going back and forth, back and forth. I love David, Jonathan, and they both have an opportunity to really show what they can do in this fight and themselves into the ranking consideration to get themselves, a Youssef or a Barbosa or somebody. The winner's gonna put themselves in the octagon with somebody highly competitive. Now, who that will be and what it will look like, man, this one is one of the tougher ones for me to predict and to go off. Because as we go through it and go back and forth, man, it really is just going to come down to who can land strikes, who can take down defense. Talk about this one might be really close. I think I'm just going to pick Pierce because I think he has more win conditions, right? I think he can win by grappling and taking him down, where I think Nama has to win by outclassing him on the significant striking. And if you get taken down, it's hard to do that. So that's where I'm just leaning Pierce. This is not a super high on the confidence pick. I think it's going to be a whale of a fight, but there's not much to break down there. Metrics very similar. A little bit of a reach advantage. I definitely like Pierce on the height there as well, despite losing some on the length of the reach. Just going to keep it simple, pick Pierce, and move on to the next fight. Heavyweight division, Austin Lane versus Johanna DC. Now, I have to look this one up. I feel like this will change. Nope, DC minus 245 versus Austin Lane, former football player. He had a no contest coming off a loss, and there's no way I'm picking Austin Lane on the official picks. Unfortunately, he has to prove he can beat a certified cage fighter making his debut in the heavyweight division, and I got DC take it home. I just think the guy will make a mistake somewhere, get caught, get rocked, get knocked, get again on his back, and I just think the panic takes in. There's just something about training to be a fighter for so many years that just as soon as you get rocked, it almost steadies them in a way, like they know where they are, they know. Playing football is just not that same way that you come out when you get a blow to the head. Usually. So I don't think it's one too much. That Lane has to prove that he can win a fight. DT making his debut. I'm gonna pick him. Just keep it simple. On this one is another barn burner. Very close fights on the main card. We got Ariana Lipsky versus Karine Silva, 17-8 versus 17 to win. Both looking to impress and in the make again in the flyweight division. Another really close one. I want to pick Lipsky because, but I'm really feeling Silva here down. I think Silva has had more impressive performances, and as close as they might, I think this is something that see picking Silva. I want Lipski to win, but I think the power, speed, veracity of Silva is just something that's going to win the day. I don't think it necessarily means she's a better fighter overall, but I think she'll be a better fighter on the day based on the skill set she presents when she steps into the octagon. I think Lipski still has a lot of place to develop, and I think she kind of fits into that more of Mackenzie Dern, where she can definitely beat a lot of people, but struggles against this another level of power. Like there is a big power factor in the women's division that certain of them have it and certain of them don't. And I think Silva is can overwhelm to get the grappling, to do the damage, and control the fight against Lipski. So I'm picking Silva here all day. And we'll see how that one shakes out. We're going into the co-main event. Ryan Spann versus Bogdan Guskov, 21-9 versus 15-3. Guskov's third fight in the UFC, lost to Uzdemir. I think he knocked out somebody last time, and then Ryan Spann coming off a loss to Anthony Lionheart Smith. And there's no way I'm ever picking Spann again. I bet on Spann. I lost on him. I don't care that he's the big favorite again. This proves that he might just lose again. Guskov is a certified cage fighter. He's training with some of the best in the world, and I know he wants to put on a performance, knock this guy Spann out. You know, the thing that I held on to Spann was him knocking out Dominic Cruz, but that was like 2 years ago. Man hasn't done much. I'm definitely worried about some of his mental commitment to the fight game. And Guskov, dude, I know after he got rocked in his first fight, he's coming out like a man on fire. And as a live dog, I'm picking Guskov here. Easy for me. So like I said, it's another one where Spann has to prove he can win one of these fights. Like losing a decision to somebody that you arguably should have knocked out and finished, but like couldn't rally yourself in the moment. Just that composure in the fight game. I think Guskov has it, man. I think he's he wants it. You know, I think Guskov all day. And into the main event, the flyweight, Alex Perez versus Matheus Nicolau, 19-4-1 versus 24-8. Both coming off a loss, both very easy, even on the metrics as we see in these divisions. This one's a tough one to call. I tell you what, though, I'm just not going to pick Alex Perez. I'm not a big Alex Perez fan. That being said, Nicolau ain't my favorite fighter. Flyweight's not the flyweight main events in back-to-back weeks. Not exactly UFC fans' ideal situation. But that being said, I think Nicolau takes it down. I think he's going to be very composed. I think you're going to see speed early from Perez trying to get in and out, but I think once Nicolau gets the timing down, I think he'll tend to be a threat to control the fight. I kind of see this one not going the distance, maybe get a submission if somebody can take some damage, but this is another one that's really hard to predict on what's going to happen. I'm just going to pick Nicolau. I'm picking the favorite. Not too much analysis on it, except that I think he has a win. I just think he might do it. Not a fan of Perez. Can't really tell you too much about him, except the fights that I've watched him, I've not been the biggest fans of, right? He did hold up to Makayev not only a month ago, so coming in on short notice. Yeah, I'm picking Nick. Should be pretty easy. And if Perez wins, then all credit to him, man. But we're trying to pick for the record to improve it. Can't wait to see what happens this Saturday night. We're doing, if you pick the whole card 100% right, we're going to give you $100. So leave your comment, pick every winner, just straight up. If they don't fight, then it doesn't matter. And if you pick them all correctly, I will give you $100 cash money. So I appreciate that. Like, comment, subscribe on the video. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take care. Peace and love.